Alright, welcome to the Omnimon Ultra-S DM trait gameplay guide right here. We are going second, and we want to have our hand that we can digivolve a 3, ideally something that we can utilize training with, or into a 4 that also has training so that we can at least start stacking cards from the top of our deck. Now, this is a really interesting new mechanic because the whole idea of this deck is that with the version 1 and 2 that I'm playing right now is you want to try to rack up as many face down cards as possible in your inheritable, because the more you have, the better value you get in the later on. So this mulligan hand afterwards looks a lot better. We have a Betamon, which gives us jamming. We have the Greymon, which we can start just continuously training as much as we can in the raising area. And I established the Analog Youth right away to help us get value so that we can constantly put more sources underneath, draw cards, and gain memory. This is a really important moment right here because you guys can see I have the full line. I can climb into a Omnimon and then into a Blitz Greymon, potentially threaten a Blast Ace against the opponents by standing as a level 5. And I can climb all the way up, but the only card I'm missing is actually a Kresgurumon. The idea of the Omnimon Ultra-S deck with the DM trait is that you want to establish your level 6 stack and then somehow find a way to play out your other level 6, whether through Omnimon or whether you hard drop it and then you can go ahead and DNA and make flexible plays and get into the Ultra-S that way. But then because I'm missing that, I didn't want to commit to the board right away and push out and start doing things because I have a feeling that the opponent is so well set up, and playing against the puppet traits with Kaguyamon in this particular matchup and Senjuromon, this can be really tricky because generally they come out and they can go crazy and explosive and go super wide and clear my board at the same time, which I won't have a good follow-up. So that's the reason you guys can see in the previous turns I was passing memory bit by bit, trying to keep my Greymon in training for as long as I can until the right moment it is to come out and start doing things. I'm training, adding more cards underneath over and over, because more cards I have underneath, Omnimon later on can play higher play cost things onto the board, which is why I'm not really trying to be too worried about like utilizing my memory efficiently, just because I feel like having better setup with a lot more resources I can work with for an explosive turn is way more meaningful and impactful in this particular matchup. I played multiple games against this, and so many times the puppet trait with the new Kaguyamon support for Senjo was able to go crazy out of nowhere, and there's nothing I can do in the follow clap back to even respond back to them because I used everything. So I'm gathering as much as I can to go for and wait for the right moment, which is why you guys can see this particular match right now so far. We're both playing like chicken. We haven't really like attacked into the opponent's security just quite yet because we're all waiting for that particular moment to go crazy. So now the opponent goes into the Kaguya first on their end. This is probably my signal to pretty much consider pushing up, because I have 2 meats prepared, which I can climb all the way up if I want to quickly go there. I have Analog Youth, which will allow me to gain memory and draw. And still at this moment, we haven't seen Kresgurumon yet. So I kind of took a bit of a gamble here, hoping that I will find one eventually, whether if I draw into one at some point, or this is where the Omnimon pays off. 2 Kresgurumons were the next hits. I gotta admit, this was definitely a lucky play because I get to play it for free off Omnimon's effect, so then I can bottom deck the Shushumon. Now I can use meat to go into Blitz Greymon. But just before going into that, I was considering maybe if I should go into Metal Omnimon just to like get rid of the Digivolution cards, sources, and then I could bottom deck something, but there's actually no need to. So I resolved to just go straight into Blitz Greymon because I can de-digivolve the Kaguyamon, which plays around their protection here, and I can still DNA into Ultra-S, which will get rid of the rest of the Shumons remaining. I'm going to Alliance for 2 checks with the Blitz Greymon along with the Kresgurumon, and now I'm going to DNA into Ultra-S, which is going to clean up all the rest of the Shumons, and I can still make another attack because I DNA digivolved here. I'm going to go ahead and swing for another 2 checks. This is where the aggressive point is, and I'm deciding if I want to use the end of attack effect, which allows me to actually play out the Kresgurumon and the Blitz Greymon out. Normally, you wouldn't like to do that if you need to clean up further more cards on the opponent's side of the board to get rid of their Digimon, since they're clean out anyways, but this puts them in a really difficult position and puts us in a very good spot, because with Kresgurumon's all turns effects, it allows us to DNA into another Ultra-S once again, which I do have in the hand if our board was ever in threat. I decided to just hard pass 3 here without dropping a rookie because I feel like it wasn't necessary, because I feel like they can always easily just climb up like this, because they push out and then they can Digivolve and DP reduce it. I'd rather save that rookie I have in the hand to Digivolve in the back to cycle for more cards. That's one thing I realized when I was playing the DM trait version 1 and version 2 deck. You really rely your draw power on Digivolving alongside with having Analog Youth. And the entire game we only have one setup. It would be ideal have multiple copies of them established on the board so they can continue to cycle. But that's why I'm being very conservative with my resources to make sure that I can still climb up just in case if I need to go for a clapback play. But we're so far beyond against the opponent at the moment, which is really good position for us because we have like 6 security against their 1. So we are sitting in the driver's seat trying to pressure lethal against them and make them play from behind, which is exactly how we pressure the win condition. Because next turn I can swing with Crest Guru and use Blitzgreymon to finish the game. If it ever will be in threat, I can always DNA into Alter S if I need to. It looks like they're going to go for the Syndromon. They're considering if they want to go ahead and attack into it. The security is going to be an Omni Alter S. They might be likely forced to use Barrier if they don't have enough DP reductions on our security. And if they ever were to choose to DP reduce any of our Crest Gurumon or Blitzgreymons on the board, Crest Gurumon comes in fantastically, which will allow us to DNA there. Or in the following turn, we'll try to pump up as many attacks as we can with Crest and Blitz. And then even use end of turn of Blitzgreymon to DNA into Alter S and declare an attack before the turn ends too. And you guys can see there's quite a lot of options when it comes to how we can play this with our top end. Once they're both out and making sure that you have the Omnimon in your hand to DNA just feels really, really good playing this deck. So now they're going to force to go into a Kaguyamon, they hard drop the level 5, and then now using the end of turn to play out the level 4 as well, which can DP reduce us further, but they decide to go for the level 3 just for additional search. And if they're seeing if they probably want to go for an overclock attack here, which they probably do, they have to bank and gamble that we may not have another Omnimon here. So we're taking a moment just to consider, because Crest Gurumon is going to be DP reduced and deleted, we are going to give Ace Overflow if we don't use this effect to DNA and dodge that deletion. So now with Alter S coming down, it has protection. We force them to make a decision to delete their entire board because they're both level 6s, but they can use their protection once they're. So we're just going to go ahead and keep the Alter S here. Now Alter S doesn't have the protection anymore because it only lasts for that particular turn when it's getting into. But there's an easy way to play around and get rid of this remaining Kaguyamon either way, which they really probably want to have standing as a defense. But we're going to Digivolve into the Betamon at the back first, start with some training, make sure we can build up a board, because not entirely we can finish it off just quite yet, but we want to pressure for the attacks and go for game. We want to play out the Crest Gurumon and the Blitzgray. Recovering a security is just fantastic. We're going to Digivolve with Blitzgray Ace first, and then use the on-play of Crest Gurumon to bottom deck it so they can protect it either way. And then we can just hard drop this Agumon and pretty much like pressure for a lethal game in the following turn. We don't have another Alter S to work with anymore at this point. Just so you guys know, I only play 3 copies of it in total. There's 2 in security, there's 1 in trash, so I won't be able to DNA. So I'm just trying to go for the most optimal setup I can for the next turn and see what they can do. But that's the crazy thing when it comes to the Shushumon and Syndromon line, which is absolutely insane because they can just drop the Shumon for 3 costs, and as long as I have like the Arisa Tamers, they can climb all the way up to a level 6 just by having 3 memory or an additional memory with the 3 cost Arisa. As you guys can see, the promo Shushumon is going to play out the token and they're going to use the memory setter Arisa to give it rush and attempt to make an attack. I could have chosen to block with the Crest Gurumon or Blitzgreymon here, but I didn't really want to go into any potential threats that they may be able to further remove us or find some ways to actually attack into us and delete us and end up giving Ace Overflow, so I just let it through. It's an Omnimon Alter S anyways, but here comes down the level 5. They're going to delete their Hanimon on the side, so now to go into Sandro. So no Kaguya there. And that pretty much gives us the green light to finish them off. We have 4 bodies pushing out the Airdramon together. Just playing around any potential level 7 aces that they may have, which will generally be Shine Greymon Burst Mode, which is a thing in the deck, which definitely helps Syndromon as well. So we're going to try to get rid of that level 6 on the board. And the tokens, there's no blockers. We could just swing out. But yeah, going for the safer play is probably the best choice. So then now I go into the Metal Mamemon, which I did say from previously, now being able to strip away all the sources and use Crest Guru to finish the game off. Next game, we're facing off against Blue-Green Imperial, which is still a very decent deck. Definitely very powerful and very fast, so it is going to be a little bit of a race, but we can try to see if we are able to establish like a really crazy board like last time and get really good setups, then that would be ideal. we are going first, and we're definitely going to mulligan our hand just because there's no rookie to work with at all, and you know, definitely want to hope for something better. Like I mentioned before, having a rookie is really important. Ideally, it's going to be the Betamon, which has training, because in the very first get-go, we can immediately use the training effect and tuck something underneath to get the most value. And then now we can just simply Digivolve into any level 4 that we want and pass the opponent to 2 memory. Situation looks pretty good so far because we have a really nice line that we climb all the way up, kind of similar to previous game. We have Omnimon, and then we can go into one of the Blitzgreymon and Crestgurumon, and then we have an Ultra S ready to go, and all we're missing is just the DNA requirement of having another Crestgurumon, and eventually we should be pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and swing with the Devimon. It has jamming thanks to the Betamon, and then now we can go for an early Omnimon play and pretty much play out this Greymon right here and establish that way. Kind of unfortunate that we bottom decked the Crestgururu and the Blitzgray there, which is a very good example that you guys can see compared to the first game, how I kind of really set up for that right moment and took my time, so then I could actually have played the level 6 out because they only have 7 costs, and it's relatively easy to reach that number with Omnimon once you're well trained enough with at least 3 sources. But I felt like I want to use like good memory efficiency right here, just because I see that they have a Davis that starts at 3. I can Digivolve into the Omnimon, play out this Greymon, and then also still play out an Analog Youth, passing them, so then I can continuously get value for the rest of the game. Here they're going to hard drop a Vmon right here, which tells me they're a little bit slowed down on not finding pieces just yet. They don't have a Davis and Ken established on the board just yet, but they did search one off the Vmon, which tells us that we have a little bit of time. Sometimes Imperial can just go crazy so quickly, where they just start playing stuff for free and then they can start DNAing, but this is where we can kind of utilize the time a little bit and try to get a better setup and see how we play from here. We're going to use our trainings first, and that's the one thing I want to mention about with training cards is when you tuck the face down card from the top of your deck, you as a player and the owner of those cards are actually allowed to look at what they are. And sometimes that can be the tricky spot with playing this deck, because you sometimes might accidentally tuck something that you actually want to have, which you prefer to draw into instead, especially for the version 1 and version 2 decks where they don't utilize much resources back from the trash if the face down sources were gone. So that turns out to be one of the most trickiest parts when it comes to playing this deck and learning about it for me, because you really want to rack up as much sources as possible to get your maximum benefit effects, but you don't want to accidentally tuck away things that you need, especially as well, right? For example, that we bomb deck the Crestgururu. I know I only have 2 left to work of the deck. There could be 1 in security, and this could be forever until I find one. If I accidentally tuck away another one, I don't have any of those to utilize, and I can't get into my top end combo. The opponent is going to go explosive here anyways. They're going to go ahead and DNA into their pile, going into the BT16 Dragon Mode, locking us out as well entirely, stopping our Analog Youth from being able to unsuspend. Our entire board couldn't unsuspend either, but they're playing cautious for sure, because they know we can potentially blast Ace into them. And the ideal one would generally be Blitzgreymon because it can de-digivolve them and it gets rid of an entire stack. But they go into the BT12 fighter mode here, which is going to bomb deck and clean out an entire board, which is rather unfortunate here. And they're just playing smart, not attacking into us, so we're able to sort of slow down the game pace a little bit and stop them from wanting to attack right away. And that's generally the idea, which is really nice about this deck, is if you're able to establish a level 5 early, you can threaten the Ace against them. And when you threaten the Ace against them, it slows down their chipping and attacking, just because the Digivolving is really good against this particular deck. I decided to push out the Greymon here and then Digivolve into the Mame and then try to like play something out, which I think looking back, I really should have actually just training at the back, even if I had to pass turn, kind of did what I did in the prior game, would have been better, because now I'm kind of a little bit stuck in this position, not knowing what the best play I would really want to try to achieve here is. Because if I did the setup play instead, I can easily climb into both level 6s if I need to, and then I can DNA into Ultra S. But because what I did here, I de-digivolved them, but I weren't able to get rid of that Vmon in the end either way, which leaves them a rookie that they can still use and DNA and repeat the same combo if they can find another rookie in hard drop and probably like go for end of turn DNA combos and stuff like that as well. The opponent is supposed to start with 3 memory, which, you know, we got here, which is not a problem because of the Davis. But I felt comfortable as well because I feel like they had to commit a lot more memory here. So they're going to hard drop the Davis and Ken, which is going to help them give them value from then on. And the only problem for us again is that there's no real answer to get rid of that Vmon. They have another Vmon right at the back to come out, and as long as I can play out like a end of turn DNA rookie, they can easily go all the way into a Pyodron all over again. They've drawn so many cards throughout this entire time already, and still I don't really have an answer that I can deal with that Vmon, and I contemplated on possibly just hard dropping the Garurumon, but that's going to give the opponent a lot of memory to work with, which is also not something I want to do. But maybe that should have been the play, because that at least enables me to get rid of that Vmon. I can easily DNA into an Ultra S, go for 2 checks, deal some damage, and play out the Blitzgray and the Kresgar back out. And if they ever try to remove us, I can easily DNA all over again if I need to. But I only have 1 Ultra S to work with. That's the reason why I didn't really commit to this play. I was trying to see if there's a way to go for it slowly. So in the end, I decided to go for the Metal Omnimon, which will allow me to bomb deck that Vmon, which generally I like to save it for this particular matchup, where I rather use it to deal with the partition sources, to play around partition potentially, because I can strip anything, which is really, really good card there. But here, once again, I'm going to establish the level 5, and then I can throw in an ace, because I do have both Blitzgraymon and Garurumon to work with to go into, so the opponent is not going to go ahead and just attack into us right away just yet. They're going to gain a bit of memory by DNAing into a Pyodramon here with BT16. They're going to strip our sources, which is going to stun us all over again, which is definitely a really, really tricky thing to deal with, because that's one of the main things that's stopping us from actually being able to push for lethal. You guys might have noticed we were able to chip away earlier a little bit by bit, but now we're kind of playing a lot of back and forth of trying to stay and survive in the game, because once again, I'm respecting the explosiveness that the blue-green Imperial Dramon deck has that can suddenly just take out all of our security. So they're going to swing with Pyodramon here into our Metal Mame. So they're banking on that we don't have an ace, but we definitely have both of them, and I actually really considered on which one to Digivolve into. First glance, Blitzgraymon would have made most sense, because of, you guys can see how I de-Digivolve their entire board there, and then gotten rid of the entire stack. Whereas if I went into Garurumon and tried to bomb deck the level 5, they would play out the 2 level 4s and they can DNA all over again. But arguably speaking, I feel like I should have went into the Garurumon, because I'm in a really awkward position right now that I couldn't find a way to climb into a Garurumon. And like I said earlier, maybe I should just hard slap it and use the Blitzgraymon end of turn and DNA either way and don't care about the memory. But memory is pretty important here. You know, with so many cards in their hand, they can easily just do their combos and climb out all over again, as you guys can see right here as they're doing it. And they only needed 3 memory to begin with anyways. So that was a tricky point. I wasn't too sure. I wanted to, if I had the Garurumon, I could then DNA into Ultra S, and I could pressure for game or pressure some lethal attacks and go from there. But again, I don't have a second Ultra S to work with, so now ending up with the Pyodramon that they have on the board, which is going to stun lock us again, which, oh man, that's such a tough battle for us. We're going to have to let the attacks go through, and I need to find a way to get into a Garurumon in the following turn. That's why I really want to do. And I have a level 4 ready to go in the back, which I also mistakenly forgot to use training with Betamon just to add a source, just in case it could have been helpful or useful in any form of way, which we have a second Metal Omnimon, which will help us play around the petition if we need to, if they ever choose to climb up even further. So we'll see what they're going to try to do here, but I really want to get into that Kresgar and maybe missing my opportunities. But here they come with another BT16 Dragon mode, which they had one initially, but with the fighter mode, they probably returned it back to their hand, so that's the same copy. And with me, I was like, okay, I could Digivolve into a Metal Omnimon, but the problem with me is that it is considered as Digivolving via an effect. So that means if I use it, they will have a chance to respond with their Dragon mode to go into a potential fighter mode. So I decided to go for it anyways and see what they would do, because I felt like, oh, maybe I could just drop the Garurumon afterwards, depending on what fighter mode they go into. They might bottom ace us, but this is where I realized that, you know, I'm trying to play around the fighter mode ace, and by stripping away the sources and counting them correctly, I don't think fighter mode ace was able to bomb deck our Blitzgray, but we do have a Blitzgray that is like equal amount of sources as a fighter mode. But it turns out in surprise they went into a virus Imperial instead, which almost does the same thing, because now they get to trash our security, stop us from playing by effects for this entire turn, and they also get to delete our Blitzgray, which their virus Imperial has higher DP. So actually, arguably speaking, it would have ended the same way here, which again, maybe I should just Digivolve in the back and just stay put. but I felt like my time was up at that point. I had to do something. If I didn't do anything, this is what they're gonna do and try to finish us off here at this moment. And Ace Overflow is gonna give them 4 memory. So it is definitely very, very tough here. It felt like we are trying to backpedal into a better position, but we weren't able to get into it. Or also at the same time, we're not really finding value in our security, because generally there's a lot of security cards that can proc from security for us in this deck that can help us have more value, such as more analog use, which we play quite a handful of. There's actually even analog man in this deck that could have came out, a meat from security as well, which would be really helpful. But yeah, they go into Pyrodramon, the one without partition, because they probably ran out of some of them by now because they went through so many of it. So they go into the starter deck dragon mode, play out the XV and the Sting, and now they can DNA all over again if they need to. But at the same time, they're being smart. They only have 3 cards left in their deck, so it's about time where the game ending moments are about to happen. And before attacking, they definitely go into their Virus Fighter, which is going to trash security, delete our entire board, because both Virus Fighter is going to delete the level 5 and level 6 Ace Overflow, gain it back, and they can easily just swing jamming, finish it off, and unsuspend. This game, we're facing off against Shoutmon, and yeah, definitely a very fast deck as well. We are going second this time around, and decided to keep the hand here just because I felt like, okay, I have one rookie. Ideally, again, Betamon, the one that has training, and then we have a Searcher Agumon to work with to potentially find a level 4. We also have Analog Man, which I can try to showcase on the value that you kind of get with this card, which is really great because it is a memory setter for the entire archetype too. So the opponent's going to start off by going into a Sparrowmon, and they're just going to drop a Taiki to search and set up and find their tamers, or get the tamers on the board, as well as grab their cross-heart stuff and continue from there. We're going to Digivolve the Betamon, definitely going to use training, tuck it underneath, and then we're just going to drop the Analog Man because this is the best opportunity to go for it, and putting them the opponent to 1 as well. The opponent is going to answer back with another Taiki, which they searched and grabbed off from the initial Taiki, so they can continue to grab their pieces and gather what they need. Generally, when it comes to Crossheart, they always want to tuck sources underneath their cards, under their tamers, so that they can Digicross and reduce their play cost off of it, which Shoutmon E-Cross 6 is pretty dangerous and pretty scary because it can like DP reduce blanket for an entire turn, and it can also just like delete things as it attacks, which is not once per turn either, with a lot of explosive attacks. They chip away a lot. So it looks like the opponent is not really trying to push out with their Sparrowmon just yet to chip away with us. So we have some time to work with here, and I'm still missing a level 4 at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and use Betamon to continue with training, and then dropping the Agumon to search, grabbing any DM trait, and bottom decking the rest. I did make a mistake because I forgot the moment that Blitzgreymon was a version 1, which I actually had to mandatorily tuck underneath Agumon right here, but generally in this whole situation and matchup it didn't matter anyways, because this deck doesn't have any recursion from the trash generally, so I kind of just lost the Blitzgreymon, and it was just an extra source, and the Agumon wasn't going to do too much because it's going to collision and get deleted here off the Raptor Sparrowmon either way. The other thing is, as I was using my training for Betamon, that's when I realized those were the level 4s being stuck in there, but thankfully I eventually do have a Devimon that I want to work with, so I can actually easily just Digivolve into that level 4 if I need to. But that comes back to the whole discussion of adding cards from the top of your deck can really whiff out your pieces that you actually ended up needing. And it's something, again, I'm being very mindful of when I'm playing, because it's like, okay, I'm checking the probability. If I don't see a level 4, for example, I should stop use training and maybe search for it about time, because the chances is more likely. So you're still gathering information by adding cards from the top of your deck, which is something you want to pay extra attention to, and that's why it's a huge perk of actually like checking as you go. But with triple meats ready to go and delay, we're gonna go into the Devimon, and then now we're gonna go into a level 5, which is going to be the Omnimon. Just like before, you guys can see the crazy amount of value by having as many face down cards as possible in your sources. Optimally for Omnimon, you really just need 3, because then you can play out like 7 cost stuff. So here I get to play another Omnimon, repeat the same thing because it has an on play effect that does exactly that too. And then I can go into Metal Omnimon. Now, the reason why I didn't use Analog Man here from playing out that Omnimon was because I actually intend to give the opponent only 1 memory. I realize they don't have a memory setter on their side of the board. I want to give them as little resources as possible, and I don't want to go all out aggressive just yet because I haven't dealt any damage against them, and I want to chip away a little bit first and then set up for a lethal play, because my plan now afterwards is to try to attack with the Metal Omnimon, Digivolve into the Blitzgreymon or try to establish both Blitzgreymon and Kresgurumon on the board, and then use Meat to Digivolve into the Kresgurumon first for free. Now I can use the Analog Youth to gain a memory and draw a card. And one thing I want to mention is I actually completely forgot to tuck a source from the trash for Metal Omegamon's effect, which should have been the Agumon that's in the trash right there, which we do have. And I did realize that sooner or later in the later of the game and added back in, but not a huge deal right here. But I really want to establish both Blitzgreymon and Kresgurumon on the board, so that if they ever go into Shoutmon E-Cross-6 and try to delete us with their DP reduction or with their when attacking effect, we can easily dodge and go into Omnimon Ultra S and play around it. And we also get the immunity, meaning the Ultra S is going to be super strong. And we have a lot of inheritables underneath the Ultra S as well that we can utilize there. So you guys can see, I kind of felt like, oh, did I forget to tuck the Agumon for the Metal Omegamon's effect? And I felt like I did, but I couldn't remember at the time. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to check the FaceTime cards, but I got to pay attention to what the opponent's doing right here as well, because they have like double Taiki from BT21. They're tucking in and also gaining memory, so they still go up to 3 because of that, and they get to draw and cycle cards. Now, one of the nice things about this deck with the Metal Omegamon and the Kresgurumon is because they bottom deck sources, which is really, really big against decks like Crossheart, because it stops them from having the ability to save their cards underneath their tamers, and whereas as their bottom deck, they have less resources to work with. And you guys can see now they're going to try to play out the E-Cross-6, but they don't have as much valuable stack cards underneath it. And they know they want to try to answer this board too at the same time, because they're trying to bank on the fact that, hey, maybe we don't have the Omnimon to go into and DNA into to stop them either. So they do have the Shooting Star Mons that can play out. Blanket 5k to the board, minus 3k, and security minus 1 onto the Kresgururu. And I'm still not too worried because they can't attack into us. And that really came in handy by bottom decking their Shoutmon King version, because Shoutmon is the source that gives them the rush ability. And now you guys can see that they finally found it here, but it's not going to work too much for them. So the security minus 1 and the minus 3k of Shooting Starmon lasts until the end of our turn. So we're going to go ahead and start a main Analog Youth and tuck something underneath, draw cards and gain memory. And keep in mind, you can only draw cards off Analog Youth effect if you have 7 or fewer. So they have a blocker on the board, which I don't really mind because I could swing with the Blitz Gray and I could alliance together with Kresgururu. And the nice thing is that Omnimon is in the stack, which has the when attacking, I get to de-digivolve 1 once per turn, putting their Shoutmon E-Cross-6 back to a Shoutmon DX instead, and basically go for 2 checks off of that. And now we can just easily DNA into Omnimon Ultra S. And with a gigantic stack of so many face down sources, we're going to end up deleting Shoutmon DX. They get to save their sources, which is totally fine for us. We're going to go for the 2 final checks right there, which they probably should have blocked our initial attack because they couldn't see this coming. But this is the epic finisher because we get to put the Omnimon Ultra S back there, play out the things, and then DNA all over again and finish it off. The Mega Machine Playmat and Sleeves are live on the AVAULT store, so make sure to grab yours right now. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, whatever you are. See you in the next video, and this is AVAULT signing